Hey, and welcome to my Zsphere tutorial. Here I'll show you how to navigate and create Z-spheres, how to create complex base meshes with spheres, how to create rigs to pose your model, and some other cool tips and tricks with Z-spheres. Okay, so let's get started. So all we have to do is just pick any subtool really, and then go down to insert, and then we want the Z-sphere. Okay, so I'm in solo mode and I've got this hidden. If you don't have that hidden, by the way, you won't be able to see the Z-sphere. So do that, and we can go into solo mode because you don't really need anything else. So all you need to know about this is that you've got a draw mode, a move mode, a scale mode, and a rotate. And as you can see, the shortcuts are Q, W, E, and R. So kind of just like any other 3D program, kind of have those shortcuts as well. So what we can do is move this. Okay, in this case, not really useful because it's one piece. We can scale this. Okay, and of course we can rotate that. So what I want to do is go to draw. I want to press X to get symmetry. Oh, and also when you have symmetry on, remember that if you do this, it will create two separate Z-spheres unless you join them together, right? And it becomes green. And then here you've got one Z-sphere to work with. Another thing that you can keep in mind is that if you go down to transform and you have symmetry on, so radial symmetry, and we'll put that on the Z-axis. Okay, so in this case, you can drag a bunch of them out and move them if you want as well. So just a really quick creation for, I don't know, some sort of creature. And now we can draw something. So let's just draw that in. Okay, and there we go, we've got our first Z-spheres, and of course we can move this. Now one thing I like to do with the draw size is I like to keep it at a lower scale, because you'll notice that it'll kind of clip other Z-spheres. So keep it down to 1, because this way you'll have better controls, you don't clip anything by mistake. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go back to draw and then alt click on this. That will delete the Z-sphere. Now you cannot delete the main Z-sphere as far as I know. Okay, so this is the root Z-sphere, okay, the main one. There's a lot of things that you can and can't do to this. So one, we can add to it. So let's go ahead and let's quickly draw something here. So draw, okay, move, we'll move that up, and then I'll go to draw, and we can add in between these areas, which is something that I quite like to do. So let's just draw one there. So I'm just going to click, and here I'm going to click and drag. Okay, let's move this so to the side, and here we've got something like an arm. Okay, draw, and here we go as well. Okay, so we're going to quickly create something, and again you can scale this, right, if you need to, or rotate. In this case we don't really need rotate, but you could do that if you wanted to. Okay, I'll just like to use move instead. So I'm going to quickly create something here, and we can fast forward through that. Okay, so now that we're done, you'll notice that we also have these bones here. Okay, so these sort of connectors from Z-sphere to Z-sphere, and again, you can't delete the main Z-sphere. Okay, so I'll alt click on that, but if you alt click on any of the other ones, they will immediately sort of get pushed back to that. Okay, so just keep that in mind. One thing you'll also notice is that from the main Z-sphere, which is this one, right, the pelvis, I guess, you'll notice that the arrows point down, okay, or away from the Z-sphere. So again, here's the main one, they all point away from it. So keep that in mind when you're constructing, because now when I rotate this, it'll rotate in that direction over there, right, rotate in this direction over here. We go to actually rotate, right, so rotate in that direction, or in this case it'll rotate in this direction now. So that's something you might want to keep in mind when you're constructing these. If you don't really care, if you're just using it to sketch something out and you don't care about rotating it, then there's no need to worry. But just remember that you want to start the main Z-sphere from an area that you are comfortable with, right, in terms of rotating. Because as you can see, this one is facing up and this one is facing down, so you can't really change that. Okay, and that is pretty much the basics of Z-spheres. So what I'm going to do is press Shift F, and you'll notice that each of these have a different poly group, which is great. And one thing that you can do is now go down to Adaptive Skin. You can go to Preview. Okay, and this will give you a preview of what to expect once you actually make this a real mesh. So what I like to do is bring the density down to 1 and Dynamesh, bring that all the way down to 0. If nothing happens, just press Preview and press it again, and that'll reset. And now you can see you've got yourself some really nice clean geometry. If you want to bring up the density a little bit, that'll kind of subdivide that, but again, you still got clean geometry. Dynamesh will just Dynamesh that on top of this, which probably isn't what you want right at such a beginner stage, so I wouldn't keep Dynamesh on, but that's just preference. There's a lot of freedom here, so that's what you will get. Once you like that, you can go to Make Adaptive Skin, and here we go over here. Okay, so this is the actual skin that you can work with. The Z-sphere itself is just a template, if you will. Don't actually work on the Z-sphere. Okay, once you're done with this, press A again, which is a shortcut for Make Adaptive Skin. Okay, or Preview rather. And yeah, so there's two versions. So just a few more things that you can do with the Z-spheres. So what you can do under Draw, okay, when you draw out, you can hold down Control, right, and then move that out. when you draw and hold down shift, it will be the same size as the previous Z-sphere. So if I want to move this and make them all the same size, so let's say that one's smaller, and now I want every single other one to be the same size. I just go to draw that out, hold down shift, and there we go. It'll be the same size. Now I can move that. So that's also pretty useful. Another thing that you can do is under draw. When you draw, you hold down control, which we've already went through. Okay, let go of control. Now you can tap control, and this will keep drawing, okay, as you go. And of course, it'll be the same size. I don't use this too often, but of course, if you've got like some sort of tentacle shape coming out, that'll be very easy to do. Normally, instead of doing that, what I would do is I would go to draw, right, get whatever size I want. I would then go to wherever I need that, and then I will go to draw and then just add a few points and then move that manually. I know this might seem like more work, but also it only works on one axis, so you're still gonna have to move it anyway. So if I go back to that draw and then go back to drawing here and then tapping control, right, you'll notice that it's all still on one axis, right? So that's kind of a problem there. And again, you can move it after you make it an adaptive skin. That's also pretty useful. So yeah, that is about it for that. So that's some advanced topics there. And another advanced one is that you can, so while holding Alt, you can move multiple sort of bones at the same time. So here I'm holding down Alt with the move selected, and I can move all of these at the same time. So in this case, if I'm going to the root over here, not the root, obviously the root is this one, but the roots of all of these, I can do this and move all of them by holding down Alt, or I can go to this one and just move this one here without moving those ones while holding Alt. Okay, so holding down Alt and doing things will also help. It works with the scale as well. So over here and over here as well. And with rotate, on the other hand, this one kind of depends on where you are in the model. So holding down Alt might not do what you expect. So usually I don't use Alt with that. So it's mainly with the moving and the scaling that I use Alt just to get all of those. So now if you're drawing this and you realize that your scaling is a bit off, so if I go to this one that I made, I'm like, oh, okay, this one is the right scale, but the one I just made is way too big. You can't actually scale them all at once. What you can do, however, is you can go down to deformation, and you can use the deformers over here. So I can rotate this, right, all at once on the Z-axis or on the Y-axis, basically any axis, or I can do it on all of them, which you probably don't want to do, right? So like that. You can also size it up, right, or scale it. And you can taper, right? You can do a bunch of things to it. So you can kind of have a look at these, and they're pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so yeah. Another thing you can do is on the root, right, the root Z-sphere, you can hold down Alt, and then anything above that, so the root Z-sphere is here, so the one above that, if I hold down Alt, I can move the whole thing, or from the side view again. And if I want to do it in any direction, I can just switch off symmetry with X. Okay, and then hold down Alt and then click and drag. And there you go. So yeah, that is pretty much it for that, and a few more advanced things that we can go through. So another thing that you can do is you can go down to adaptive skin, and you've got this thing called use classic skinning. So let's go through that really quickly. So what you can do is go to draw. Let's switch symmetry back on with X. I'm going to go to draw, just draw this out, move that. There you go. And what you can do is you can go to draw and you can alt click on this. And now you've got this floating sphere. These are called magnetic spheres. And if I press A for adaptive skin, you'll notice it still makes the same sort of shape. But if I go to use classic skinning and press A, you'll now notice that the shape is very, very different, right? If you look at the silhouette, it's a lot more different from what we've been doing. So that is another way to add bulk to this, okay, instead of using the normal. So what I'm doing here is pressing A to go to adaptive skin, or preview rather, and then I'm using classic skinning. Okay, if I don't use classic skinning, it'll do what we've been doing this whole time. But if you want sort of bulk added to that, what you can do is go to use classic skinning, press A, and there you go. Again, this might not be what you want, so that's okay. And to join these back, what you can do is go to draw and then alt click on this and it'll join back. Okay, so those are magnetic spheres. And another thing that you can do with classic skinning is if I press A, you'll notice that you've got a little bit of a cap here on the cylinder, which is great. Another thing you can do is just draw that on. We can move this into that, so now it's kind of pushing in, as you'll notice. If I press A, you'll notice you've got that going in, and that'll work. I might not make that as big though, so I would probably undo that, and I would probably scale this down and then move it. So like that, and then press A. There you go. It's a little bit more manageable. So yeah, that's also something cool that you can do. Again, make sure you're using classic skinning with this, right? So press A to get out of preview mode, and then use classic skinning on and off. So that just depends on that. So yeah, those are some advanced techniques, but pretty cool, pretty useful from time to time. I myself don't use Zspheres all that often, but they are pretty useful. Alright, so now we have a rough idea of how Zspheres work and a little bit of advanced techniques. What we can do next is use Zspheres for rigging. You can also use Zspheres, by the way, if you press the comma key and go to Zee Zoo to create simple meshes, but we'll go through that a little bit later. For now, we're going to use that to create a rig, the Zspheres. So what I'm going to do, or what I've already done, is I've created a rig already, okay? And we just want to use this to actually pose the mesh we already have. So again, to find the base, we just want to make sure that's where it is. So it should be, here we go, okay? Again, all the arrows point out from the base, or the root sphere, in other words, to be this one here. So all of this is correct, and if I get out of solo mode, we can see if I go to transpose, it fits directly into this, and that's why I made it. By the way, I have this model free to download on my ArtStation and Flip Normals and Gumroad, so you can check that out, links in the description below. I also have a paid version, and you can also check that down below as well. So now we have that. Again, you already know how to create all these Z-spheres and what to do with them. What I'm going to do next is go to the base mesh, okay, and then get out of transpose mode there. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is go down to geometry, and then I'm going to go to proxy pose, which is over here. Okay, and then I want to bring that amount up just a little bit. Okay, so about there. So it's not too high poly. Okay, after that, what I want to do is go to Z plugin, and I want to go to transpose master. Let me just put this on the side here. So transpose master. Okay, what I want to do next is go to the actual rig. Okay, so the Zspheres. I want to say store the rig. Okay, so I'm storing that. Okay, so next we're going to go to the base, okay, the one that we're actually going to use. And you want to make sure that you have Zsphere rig activated, okay, and then next what we want to do is say T-pose mesh. Okay, so if we get out of solo mode, you'll notice that we have this, and we have this massive Z-sphere there. What we're going to do next is press the paste TM rig. This will take about a second, or more than a second, so don't panic, it's not freezing or anything. Okay, just to get that rig in there, and now we can actually move this around. But because ZBrush likes us to jump through menus, what we're going to do is go all the way down here to rigging. Then I'm going to say bind mesh. Now we can actually move everything. So I'm going to press X for symmetry, and now you can see we can actually move this mesh around. So we can kind of do whatever we want here. Okay, move things around, deform things. Alright, and if you do need to rotate something like the forearm, for example, what you could do is just click on rotate and then just rotate this in any direction that you want. So there you go, right? Just like we did with the Z-spheres before, you can click on something like scale, click on this, for example, hold down Alt and then scale everything, for example, just to maybe buff him up a little bit if you want, or skin him back down. Obviously there's a limit, now he looks like an alien, but yeah, right, there's a little bit of freedom with that. So basically the same controls, just now you have a rig around a mesh, so it does affect all of that. And by the way, what you can do as well, you can go to deformation and you can go to rotate on the y-axis maybe. Okay, so we can do something like that and nothing happens, but you just have to go back to move and just click on any one of these and it'll just reset it back to where it was. So something like that, it'll basically snap to where it should be. Okay, so like that. And it might deform something, so just be careful with how much you're rotating it. So I probably wouldn't recommend doing that in general, so I'm just going to undo that. But you can do that if you wanted to. So there we go. Let's say we're happy with that. What we're going to do next is go to T-pose. Okay, so to transfer it back, so click on that. Again, there it is, transferred. If you click on this guy, and then we can go back to proxy pose, switch it off. So here we've got the high poly that's been posed. Okay, and then that's how you use the Z-spheres to create rigs to move your objects or your mesh. And here's yet another thing that you can do with Z-spheres. So let's say you've created a nice little shape here, and you think, you know what, I could probably use this for something. And you can. So you want to go on over to stroke and then say copy Z-sphere chain. Okay, curves helper, Z-sphere chain, copy that. So just click on that. And then what you can do next is go back to stroke and then say create curve. This will create the curve that the Z-sphere made. Now this one's a little bit jagged, so it might be a little bit different. And yes, the cube is compulsory because you can't create any one of these curves without an actual geometry. So once you're done with that, you can press B and then C and then choose one of these curve brushes. So curve cube, curve snap. In this case, let's choose the curve strap snap, okay, and we want to make sure that the size is a little bit doable, so something like that. And if you click on that, okay, you'll notice it'll follow that path. What you can do is just pull this to smooth that out a little bit, or you can undo that, go back to stroke, and under curve modifiers, you can, or curve functions rather, you can click on smooth, that will smooth it for you, and then click back here, and then there you go. So again, you can go back to BC and then choose something else like curved cubes, for example. So that's one way to create a nice sort of path for your cubes or curves to go onto. Okay, so one last thing I want to show you guys before I go, and that is the Zee Zoo. Okay, so if you press your comma key and you go to project, you'll notice you've got it right here. So there are a bunch of animals over here. Okay, there's tons of them. So before you create your own, make sure you find bugs, stuff like that. Make sure you find it here before you go through all that effort. Right, they've got dinosaurs, they've got tigers. Well, that doesn't really look like a tiger, but right, they've got trout, they've got a vulture. I think they have a T-Rex. There, that's not a T-Rex, but yeah, you get the point, right? So before you go through all that effort, they've got something here. And let me get out of that with the comma key. And you'll now notice, right, we're using a gorilla in this case. And if I go to edit or draw in this case, and I draw, you'll notice that the shapes are a little bit different, right? These are definitely not the same. They work the same, so I can move this, for example, I can scale it. Okay, I can rotate it if I want to, right? The same thing, but these are different shapes. So how do I do this? Can I do this? Can I actually make my own one? Yes, you can. I'm going to show you that in a second. And here's our root, by the way. Okay, you'll always be able to see that because it'll be two-tone, right? Regardless of whether it's being selected or not. So that's the root in this case. So yeah, some pretty cool things that you can do here. And of course, if we go all the way down, we can just press preview, make sure density is at 1 and Dynamesh is on 0. So we can preview that, and here we go. Of course, if you want that up, you can go density of 2, and we can bring the Dynamesh up to about 112, for example. Double click that, and there you go. So just a very basic shape that we can get in there, which is really, really convenient. So again, you already know how Zspheres work. It's the exact same thing with this. We're just using different shapes. So let's actually see how to create that. So let's quickly go on up here. We're going to go to cylinder 3D. I'm going to get out of perspective with P. Okay, the button is there. And I want to go to insert, actually not insert. I want to click on this one, click on it again, and I want to go to the sphere 3D, and on the cylinder 3D, I just want to change that to the sphere-under 3D. Okay, so click on that. Now I want to go down to initialize, because this is quite high poly. I don't really want that. So I want the H divide to be 30. Well, actually, we'll just make them all 30, okay, so we have less polygons to work with. Not really a big deal, but yeah. Okay, there you go. Another thing I want to do is actually push the direction so it's on the z-axis over here. Okay, and then after that I want to make this a polymesh 3D. So make sure you're on the sphere, make sure it's rotated in this direction, and then say make polymesh 3D. Okay, and then I want to rename that to call this main. Okay, and next we'll go to the sphere under. Okay, this one again, rotate that 90 degrees. So again, it's facing. So again, it's facing in this direction. Okay. So after you're done with that, again, I want to go to make polymesh 3D, and then we're just going to rename this to sub, just so I know where to find them, because I've got a bunch here. Okay, so after that, what I'm going to do is go to any one of these, really. Go to insert, Zsphere, and we already know how to work this by now. I'm in solo mode. Okay, so now we have the Zsphere here. I'm going to switch on symmetry, making sure I'm on classic skinning and preview and density of 1, previews off, density of 1, Dynamesh of 0. Okay, I'm going to draw these in really quickly. So like that, for example. So like that. Okay, I'm going to click on this connector mesh. Okay, I'm going to say insert connector mesh. I'm going to go to the sub. Okay, that will replace that. And then on the root, okay, remember the root, I'm going to go to click on that. I'm going to go to insert local mesh and use the main. Okay, you won't see a difference, but if I press A, you'll notice it has changed. Okay, so like that. And now, of course, I can go in here and keep drawing out. Okay, so if you want to create like a sort of spider shape, you could do that. But of course, you already have spiders over here. So I forgot where it was, but it's here. Oh, there it is. Right, you already have a spider. So again, there's kind of no need to create your own version of this because they already have so many. There's over 100, I believe. So, and also, if you are unhappy with what you already have here, for example, what you could do is go into the move, click on that, press A to get out of preview mode, click on this to move it, right? That's the root sphere. What I can do is go down here. I can go to insert local mesh, okay, with the sphere selected, and then I can change that and it'll change all of them. Okay, so there's something cool that you can do as well. So yeah, pretty useful. The Zee Zoo, you can create your own ones. And in case you're wondering how they made this, for example, what you could do is quickly go here. Let me just draw this in really quickly. So draw, move like that, and we could do this really quickly and do that. Okay, for this one, we just have to rotate this up 90 degrees, okay, because the axes are a little bit weird in this. I don't know why. They should just use up and down and not. Anyway, so just change the direction of the axis there. Okay, we're going to go back to Gorilla. We're going to select this with the move. So select that, the actual connector. Okay, go down to adaptive skin, go to insert connector mesh, select the ear, and then there you go. Okay, so now I can just move this, and there you go. So now if I press A, that's what we'll get. Now, of course, you want to experiment with different shapes, but as you can see, pretty robust and a lot of freedom. But again, before you create your own one, remember there's a ton of them over here, so just find yours first and then use this as a template. Really, you don't have to create your own one. There's no need for that. So yeah, that is pretty much it for Zspheres and the Zee Zoo and creating your custom Zspheres and how to use Zspheres and customizing Zspheres and posing things and all that type of stuff. So hope you guys enjoyed it. It was quite a lot to go through, and yeah, like it if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't. Let me know what you guys thought in the comment section, and don't forget to check out the free and paid links down below.